I didn't pack anything fancy when I left my apartment that night. Just 2 duffel bags, a car seat, and my 7-year-old son asking me from the back seat why we were driving so late. "We're going on an adventure," I told him. He accepted that. Kids do when they trust you. His name is Elliot. He has his father's eyes and my stubbornness, and he still sleeps with a stuffed elephant named Gary that's missing one button eye. I want you to know that about him before I tell you the rest, because what happened next? What my brother said when I showed up at his door. I need you to understand exactly who was standing next to me when he said it. My name is Leigh. I'm 31. I'm a registered nurse. I work nights in a trauma unit, and I have been doing this, all of this, the nursing, the parenting, the keeping it together alone, since Elliot was 2 years old. His father didn't leave dramatically. There was no fight, no big scene. He just slowly stopped coming home. And one day I realized I hadn't thought about him in 3 weeks, and that was that. I don't say that for sympathy. I say it because it's context. Because the way my family treated me after that, after I became a single mother, shifted in ways I didn't fully notice until I was standing on my brother's porch in November with a 7-year-old and 2 duffel bags and nowhere else to go. The pipe had burst 3 days earlier, not a small leak. A catastrophic split in the wall behind the bathroom, the kind that soaks through drywall and ruins flooring and makes the whole unit unlivable until remediation is done. My landlord was responsive, to his credit. He found us a hotel for the first 2 nights. But by day 3 he told me it would be at least 2 more weeks before the apartment was safe to return to, and the hotel budget had run out. I called my mom first. She lives 40 minutes away, in the house I grew up in. She has 3 extra bedrooms. She said she was in the middle of something, and would call me back. She did not call me back. So I called my brother. His name is Griffin. He's 36. He married his college girlfriend, a woman named Brooke, 8 years ago, and they live in a 4-bedroom house in a suburb that has its own zip code, specifically so the kids don't have to attend the city school district. They have 2 children, a daughter, 8, and a son, 5. Each child has their own bedroom. The 5th bedroom is a playroom. The 6th is what Brooke calls her creative space, which contains a Peloton and approximately 40 throw pillows. When I called Griffin, he picked up on the 2nd ring. "Hey," he said. "What's up?" I explained the pipe, the hotel, the 2 weeks. I explained that Elliot was doing okay, but that sleeping in hotel rooms was starting to wear on him, that he'd asked me twice if we were moving forever, and that I just needed somewhere stable for a couple of weeks while my apartment was fixed. Griffin said, "Yeah, of course, let me just check with Brooke." I heard him put the phone down. I heard muffled conversation. It went on longer than a conversation about a 2-week house guest should. When he came back, his voice had changed. It had gone a little flat, a little careful. "So, here's the thing," he said. "Brooke is worried about the disruption. The kids have their routine, and you know how Brooke is about the house." I waited. "You're totally welcome to come stay," he continued. "But, and I'm just being honest with you, it might be easier if Elliot stayed somewhere else, like with a friend, or, he's 7, Griffin. I know. I'm just saying, the kids share a bath schedule and Brooke's been really stressed lately and he's 7 years old and we have nowhere to go." Silence. "I'll ask her again," Griffin said. He did not ask her again. What he did was text me 40 minutes later, "Sorry, Leigh. It's just not a great time. You could try Mom again." I sat in the hotel room and read that text twice. Elliot was on the bed next to me, watching something on my tablet with headphones on. He hadn't heard any of it, and I was grateful for that. I was so grateful for that. Right up until he pulled one headphone off and looked at me and said, "Mom, are we going to Uncle Griffin's?" I kept my face very still. I've learned to do that, working in trauma. You learn to hold your expression while the world falls apart around you, because someone is always watching your face to decide how scared they should be. "Not tonight, bud," I said. He looked at me for a second. Then, "Is it because of me?" I put my phone face down on the bed. I said, "What? No, of course not. Why would you think that?" He shrugged, the way kids do when they know more than they're saying. "Uncle Griffin's house has a lot of rooms, but I've never been invited to sleep there." He was right. He never had been. We ended up at a colleague's house for 3 days, a fellow nurse named Tamsin, who has a pull-out couch and a very forgiving cat. She fed us pasta and didn't ask a lot of questions. I will never forget that. But I couldn't stay there indefinitely. And it was during those 3 days, curled up on Tamsin's couch after Elliot fell asleep, that I started thinking clearly about money. For the first time in a while. My grandmother had passed 4 years ago. Her name was Ruth, and she was the kind of woman who pressed exact change into your palm when she hugged you goodbye, and somehow always knew when you were about to cry before you did. She left me something, I knew that much. She told me herself, the last Christmas before she got sick. She'd taken my hand and said, "I set something aside for you, Leigh, not for anyone else, for you." When she died, my father handled the estate. He was named executor. My dad and I have never been especially close. He remarried when I was 12, moved across the state, and our relationship exists mostly in the form of birthday texts and the occasional obligatory call. But he's a practical man, and I trusted him to be at least functionally honest about paperwork. He told me after Ruth died that there had been some complications, that her accounts were tangled, that after debts and fees were settled, there wasn't much left, and what remained had gone into covering her medical bills. I remember being on the phone with him when he told me. I remember feeling sad, not for the money, I hadn't been counting on it, but because it felt like losing another piece of her. I said, "Okay, thank you for handling everything." He said, "Of course. That's what family does." I didn't look at the paperwork he sent me. I filed it away in a folder, and the folder went into a box, and the box went to the back of my closet, and I kept working nights and raising Elliot and not thinking about it. Until Tamsin's couch. Until I had nothing but time and a phone, and that particular kind of desperation that makes you finally open the boxes you've been avoiding. I don't know what made me pull up my grandmother's estate documents. I think I was half looking for her. For something of hers. I found the folder on my phone. I'd scanned everything years ago for a reason I don't even remember, and I started reading. The first document I opened was a summary from the estate attorney. The second was a bank statement attached to it. The third was a trust instrument dated 18 years ago. My grandmother had established a formal revocable trust when I was 13. The trust named me as sole beneficiary. It had been funded with $190,000 from the sale of a property she owned, plus additional contributions over the years that brought the balance, at the time of her death, to approximately $224,000. The trust named my father as trustee. I sat on Tamsin's couch and I read that number 4 times. Then I read the disbursement records attached. Over a period of 3 years following my grandmother's death, the trust account had been systematically drained. Withdrawals of $8,000 here, $15,000 there, twice a withdrawal of $22,000. The reason listed on nearly every one: trustee administrative expenses and estate management fees. At the bottom of the last page, a final balance, $1,000. I put my phone face down on the pillow. I looked at the ceiling. I listened to Elliot breathing in the pull-out bed across the room. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I just lay there and let the shape of it become real. My father had been telling me there was nothing left. He had been telling me this while he withdrew my money, my grandmother's gift to me, in careful increments over 3 years. He'd done it slowly enough that no single withdrawal looked alarming. He'd labeled them like expenses. He'd sent me a summary that was technically true. There was nothing left because he had taken it. I thought about my brother's text. "It's just not a great time." I thought about Elliot asking if it was because of him. I thought about what my grandmother said. "For you, Leigh, not for anyone else." I am, professionally, a person who assesses situations quickly and acts. That's the job. Someone comes in critical and you don't have time to feel it. You chart, you call, you move. I moved. The next morning, while Elliot was eating cereal, I called the estate attorney whose name appeared on the original trust documents. The office had changed firms, but the attorney, a woman named Ms. Aldridge, was still practicing and still had my grandmother's file. She remembered the trust. She also remembered that she had reached out to me twice in the year following my grandmother's death. A certified letter and an email to discuss the trust administration and confirm my awareness of the account. I never received a certified letter. The email address she had on file was one I'd used in college and abandoned years ago. She asked me how I'd become aware of the trust. I told her I'd found the documents myself. There was a pause. Then she said, carefully, Ms. Leigh, I think we should meet. I won't describe the legal process in exhaustive detail because it wasn't quick and it wasn't simple. What I will tell you is this: what my father did constituted trustee misconduct. The systematic withdrawal of trust assets for personal use, regardless of how it was labeled, is a breach of fiduciary duty. Ms. Aldridge referred me to a litigation attorney. The litigation attorney sent a formal demand letter. My father, when confronted, did not deny it. He said the expenses had been reasonable. He said he had carried the burden of the estate alone. He said I had never asked about the money, so he had assumed I didn't need it. That last part is the one that stays with me. I had never asked, so he assumed I didn't need it. I had never asked because I trusted him. I had trusted him the way you trust your father. Imperfectly, from a distance, but fundamentally, the way you trust the ground to be there when you step. The settlement took 7 months. At the end of it, I received $224,000 in restitution, the original trust balance plus interest, calculated from the date of the first unauthorized withdrawal. My father was removed as trustee, an action that is now part of the public probate record. He did not attend the final settlement conference. His attorney attended instead. My brother called me when it was over. I didn't answer. He texted, "Dad told me what happened." I had no idea. "I'm sorry, Leigh." I read the text. I put my phone in my pocket. I went and picked Elliot up from school. On the drive home, he asked if we could get a dog. I said, "Let me think about it." He said, "That means yes." He wasn't wrong. I want to tell you about the other thing because it matters. While the legal process was happening, during the 7 months of paperwork and attorney calls and depositions I sat through with my hands folded in my lap, I had moved Elliot and myself into a 2-bedroom apartment. Smaller than our old place, but ours. I paid first and last month's rent out of my savings, which had nearly run dry, and I worked extra shifts and I did not ask my family for anything. 4 months in, my father called me. Not through his attorney. His own voice, on my phone, on a Tuesday afternoon when I was in the parking lot of Elliot's school. He said he was having some financial difficulty. He said he knew things were complicated between us right now. He said he wasn't asking for much, just a short-term loan. He used the word loan to cover some unexpected expenses. I sat in my car in that parking lot and I held the phone very still. Then I said, "I can't help you with that." He started to say something else. I said, "I have to go. Elliot's about to come out." Elliot was not about to come out. School didn't end for another 20 minutes. But I sat in that car for all 20 of them, watching the doors, waiting for my kid. When he came through, backpack too big for his body, one sock pulled up higher than the other, waving at me before he even reached the car, I felt something in my chest loosen. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Just relief. The clean, simple relief of knowing exactly where I stood. Knowing who was in my car and who wasn't. I bought a house last spring. It's a 3-bedroom, which is 2 more than Elliot and I need right now, but I bought it anyway. 1 bedroom is his. 1 is mine. The 3rd has a window that faces the backyard, and right now there's nothing in it but a lamp and a bookshelf and afternoon light. And I like it that way. My grandmother had a house once. She sold it to fund my future. I didn't know that until a year ago, and when I found out, I sat with it for a long time. The image of her deciding to do that, liquidating something real and tangible, and converting it into a number in an account with my name on it. She couldn't have known what would happen. She couldn't have known that the person she trusted to protect it would spend it instead. But she built the system. She put a lawyer's name on the paperwork. She sent the certified letters through proper channels. She did everything she could. I think about her when I sit in that third bedroom with the afternoon light. I think she did everything she could from where she stood. And then I had to do the rest from where I stood. Elliot came in there one afternoon and asked what the room was for. I said, "I'm not sure yet." He looked around. Then he said, "It feels like it's waiting." I looked at him, this boy with his stuffed elephant and his mismatched socks and his father's eyes that I've long since stopped seeing as his father's eyes, and I thought, yes, it is. It's waiting. For whatever comes next. I don't tell this story to make my family look bad. They managed that themselves. I tell it because I know there are people who got a text like the one my brother sent me and believed, even for a second, that maybe they were the problem. That maybe their child was too much. That maybe they had been asking for too much all along, and that's why there was never quite enough room. If that's you, pull out the paperwork. The actual paperwork. Read it. Call the attorney. Open the boxes in the back of the closet. Not because there's always money waiting. There isn't. But because you deserve to know what's actually yours, and who actually took it, before you spend one more year apologizing for needing a place to sleep. Elliot got his dog, by the way. A rescue greyhound named Chester who is absolutely terrified of squirrels and hogs, the couch with tremendous confidence. Elliot sleeps with one arm around Chester, and one arm around Carrie the one-eyed elephant, and looks, in those moments, like the most settled person in the world. I bought this house. I have a third bedroom with afternoon light. I have a son who asks good questions. And I have a file, preserved digitally in 3 separate places, documenting exactly what was done and exactly how it was corrected. I keep it because I am a person who learned, later than I should have, that documentation is love. That paper trails are a form of protection. That the most generous thing my grandmother ever did for me was write it all down. The second most generous was trusting that I'd eventually find it. I found it, Grandma. A little late, but I found it. I've thought a lot about timing, about how 7 months of legal paperwork doesn't feel like justice while you're living inside it. It just feels like more weight. And then, one day, it's over. And you're sitting in a car in a school parking lot waiting for your kid, and you realize the weight is gone. Not dramatically, just gone. That's how cause and effect actually works, I think. Not like a movie, where the bad guy gets his moment and the music swells. More like weather. Things accumulate quietly, and then the pressure shifts and something changes that can't be changed back. My father made a choice. Dozens of choices, actually, each one small enough to feel justifiable in the moment. Probably. And those choices built a structure that eventually had my name on it in a courthouse document. He didn't plan for that. But he built it anyway, one withdrawal at a time, and I made choices too. I chose, for years, not to open the box. I chose to take people at their word when their word was the easier thing to accept. I'm not blaming myself for trusting my father. I think trusting your parents is a reasonable default, and I'd make a lot of the same calls again. But I also know that the moment I stopped waiting for someone to hand me the truth and started looking for it myself, everything changed. Not because the truth was magic. Because knowing it gave me somewhere to stand. That's the thing about Elliot's question. Is it because of me that I keep coming back to? He was 7, and he had already started absorbing the idea that he might be the problem. That's what happens when a child is treated like an inconvenience by people who are supposed to love him. It doesn't announce itself. It just settles in, quietly, like dust. And if I hadn't moved, if I had stayed in that hotel room and accepted my brother's text and kept my head down, that dust would have kept settling. On him. On us. On everything. I think what this comes down to, for me, is that intelligence without action is just sadness. I could have read those documents, understood exactly what happened, and still done nothing, out of fear, out of exhaustion, out of the particular kind of shame that comes with admitting your own father stole from you. A lot of people do exactly that. I understand why, but the thing that Ruth did, my grandmother, who sold a house and wrote it all down and put a lawyer's name on the paperwork, was that she didn't just feel love, she built something with it. She converted feeling into structure, into documentation, into a system that could survive her. That's what I want Elliot to learn from all of this. Not that people will always do right by you, not that the world is fair, but that you have the capacity, right now, with whatever you have, to build something that holds, to act with enough integrity that the paper trail of your life, if someone ever reads it, will make sense. Will show who you were. Will hold up. I bought a house. I have a third bedroom with afternoon light. I have Chester the greyhound and Gary the one-eyed elephant and a kid who asks better questions than most adults I know. None of that came from waiting. It came from reading the documents,